If that Tim Walz that guy got into power, like if Kamala died and Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, was our president, you know how crazy this country would be? That weirdo who puts tampons in the boys' room. And what about our Joy? Like, he's a complete pathological liar. Like a complete liar. Lied about being in Tiananmen Square. Lied about being head coach of a football team.
That Walz guy, I mean, I don't want to be too unfair because I don't know him and I don't have any hard evidence. He's a weirdo. That guy's weird.
He seems very
I'm
strange.
sorry.
Yes.
There's something not right about that guy's personal life. So I hope I'm wrong because I don't want people like that with power. But most people I know with power in Washington have personal lives that would not withstand scrutiny.
Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson strongly criticized Governor Tim Walz. They said he made mistakes during the pandemic, treated people unfairly, and tried to control too much. They talked about things they think the news doesn't mention. Their talk made a big impact, and now Walz is facing serious problems. This could be a big moment for him, and not in a good way.
He believes a lot of wild things. One of them is transgender surgery for people who are under 13.
So for those out there who are wondering, aren't there something else you could be doing or doesn't seem to impact you in your life? This is what it means to show empathy. This is what it means to be welcoming.
He changed the Minnesota state flag to make it look like the Somali flag. You haven't seen that?
But our current flag is problematic. I think we all.
Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson are very different. Rogan is a popular podcaster who talks about hunting, drugs, and government secrets like he's telling jokes in a bunker. Carlson wears a suit and speaks seriously about problems in American life. They don't usually agree until now.
Seen that video?
No.
Pull that video up because it's one of my favorite.
What is a woman? What is a woman is the question.
I'm not sure I understand the question here. What do you want me to say?
I want you to say that a woman like me is an adult human female, that men can't become women. You guys are the party of violence, and you're the party erasing women. You don't respect us. You're a bigot. You're a misogynist. You're a sexist. Mr. Chairman,
If you're enjoying this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe because when it comes to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the unity here is forged through takedown. Rogan and Carlson teamed up with such intensity, even a pro wrestling promoter might call it too dramatic for television. So what triggered this intense political takedown? Simple, a governor who got far too comfortable with his emergency powers.
Can't get past the core fact about Walz, which is he presided over, allowed the biggest city in the state to get burned down.
And seemed to not only allow it, but kind of
He liked it.
support it, you know.
Did you see the video of his wife saying, I kept the windows open so I could smell the burning rubber from the riots?
I could smell the burning tires. And I kept the windows open for as long as I could.
I did not see that.
The wife whose hand he shook?
Oh my God. By the way, it's picking on a little thing, but who the hell shakes their wife's...
Governor Tim Walz, once seen as a low-key leader with the charm of a stale granola bar, suddenly seemed to believe he ruled Minnesota like a king. Lockdowns, mandates, school closures, economic restrictions. He was front and center, clipboard in hand, grinning as he rolled out rule after rule that few had asked for. That's when Rogan and Carlson stepped in, ready to tear down what they saw as his unchecked authority, like a constitutional wrecking crew.
Walz's descriptions of his military career, because there's some issues there that people have. I don't know if he flat out ever said that he served in Afghanistan, but he certainly didn't dissuade people from saying that he was when they were saying he didn't correct them.
Right.
There was things
he didn't, and he didn't. And you can look at interviews, and there's no pushback. There's no like, excuse me, I didn't go to Iraq. Right.
Exactly.
And I retired, as my unit was deploying. And so
we were retired a couple months.
Joe Rogan, speaking from his Tough Guy podcast studio, started by mocking Minnesota's COVID rules. He didn't use charts or data, just jokes and common sense. He made fun of Governor Walz the way he cooks his elk meat, loud and intense. He pointed out strange things like people wearing 2 masks in a snowstorm, kids learning school through video games, and gyms being closed while weed shops stayed open. Tucker Carlson had a quieter style. He didn't joke or yell, he just looked into the camera with a serious face, as if saying, "You lost your freedom, and I'm not saving it."
Saying free speech doesn't include hate speech and misinformation.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Hey man, you. Because everything that we called misinformation just a few years ago, it's on the front page of the New York Times now.
Supporters of Governor Walz kept saying, free speech doesn't allow hate or misinformation. But then Tucker Carlson stepped in with proof. He pointed out that things once called misinformation are now being reported as facts in major newspapers. He said people weren't just confused, they were lied to on purpose. Carlson didn't yell. He calmly showed how small businesses were hurt, mental health got worse, and government workers had fancy meals while kids struggled in school. It wasn't just news, it felt like a takedown. The internet reacted fast. Rogan's videos spread. Quickly, memes flooded social media. Then they talked about crime. When police were cut and replaced with soft programs, crime didn't go down, it got worse. Carjackings went up. Stores were robbed. One grocery store even put metal detectors next to the frozen food.
I'm the law-abiding grandma that was sentenced to 90 days in jail for opening my business during the shutdowns as a peaceful protest when Minnesota Governor Tim Walz unconstitutionally and illegally shut our businesses down. So my question is, if you were in my situation, would you have done the same thing?
I think what you did is honorable and necessary, and I think that you'll be recorded by someone, maybe silently, as a hero for what you did. Did you serve 90 days?
I served 60.
That's just incredible to me. Let me just say that Walz and every other governor who did anything like that is a monster, and I think on some level he will be punished.
As communities cried out for real help, Governor Walz responded with a 76-page document titled Reimagining Community Wellbeing. It offered solutions like group meditation and, perhaps, sending stern letters to repeat offenders. Joe Rogan wasn't having it. Fueled with the energy of 5 Red Bulls, he slammed the absurdity. Stores were being looted, fires were lit, and it was labeled mostly peaceful, as if describing a relaxing weekend retreat, but someone reopening a gym. Treated like a criminal. Tucker Carlson joined in with his signature cool, disappointed tone, the kind that stings more than shouting. He played footage of crumbling neighborhoods, boarded up businesses, and terrified families leaving like it was the last evacuation flight out. His verdict: Walz wasn't leading. He was acting like a flustered school principal who lost control of lunch hour and thought banning pizza would fix it. Then came the education system. Once a point of pride, Minnesota schools under Walz had turned into classrooms of confusion. Kids weren't learning how to read or do math, they were encouraged to explore inner truths and examine power structures. Standardized tests were called unfair, discipline was seen as oppressive, and math gave way to interpretive dance and feelings.
And people call you a Nazi.
Did not see it coming.
There's video of Tim Walz doing the exact same thing.
Right.
And he said, of course, it's a Nazi salute. This is how crazy things have gotten. Like,
it's coordinated propaganda. They all say the same thing at the same time, using the same phrases. They don't even bother picking up a thesaurus. The Dem leadership issue their instructions, and their puppets carry it.
As a father himself, Joe Rogan hit a breaking point. Your kid can't even read, he said, but he's been trained to spot microaggressions in a coloring book. He called it what it was: therapy disguised as education, wrapped in worksheets. He even joked that Minnesota students probably use ChatGPT to do their homework not out of laziness, but because they've lost faith in what they're being taught. TuckerCarlson.com, and cutting as ever, added that while test scores were collapsing, the state was pouring millions into consultants teaching educators how to dismantle educational power structures. In other words, no useful learning, but plenty of good feelings. Rogan and Carlson rarely align. One's a comic cage fighter. The other sounds like he gives TED Talks in a 3-piece suit. But Walz's transformation of Minnesota into a soft, over-regulated social experiment brought them together. Suddenly, they were in sync, a wild brawler fist-bumping a debate team captain. And when they zeroed in on Walz, driven by frustration, facts, and a flood of pandemic flashbacks, it felt like game over. What lit the fuse? Memories of a time when confusion and control were packaged as leadership, and people are no longer buying it.
Tim Walz, just to descend into the political for a second, what do you make of that pick? How's that going?
I was somewhat surprised by it. I didn't think
I would have bet money Shapiro was getting it.
Yeah, I thought they kind of sent the signals over the last couple weeks that he was out, but I was assuming Mark Kelly was going to be the guy, because he's from what I understood, they were friendly with Harris. He's got kind of this thing where, like, His wife was shot, and he's an astronaut.
Governor Walz somehow managed to act like a substitute teacher while ruling like a prison warden. What began as emergency powers morphed into a year-long illusion of control. One day, you're walking your dog. The next, you're fined for sitting on a park bench too close to someone. Minnesota became the only place where standing near a lake required 6 feet of distance, maybe even a permit to breathe fresh air. Enter Joe Rogan. Wielding his signature blend of rugged logic and biting humor, he roasted Walz like meat at a wilderness cookout, laughing at how the COVID rules felt made up on the spot. Wait, he quipped. You can buy vodka, but you can't hit the squat rack. COVID must really hate leg day. The state's policies felt like an escape room designed by people who'd never been outside, needlessly complex, strangely strict, and completely backwards. And just when Walz's team thought things couldn't get worse, Tucker Carlson arrived cold and razor-sharp. No yelling, no jokes. Just quiet demolition. He dismantled Walz's record like a man peeling wallpaper off a house that was already collapsing.
About my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us you do unto me. I think that's true of most Americans. They simply want order to it.
First of all, kudos to CBS for allowing Governor Walz to quote Matthew 25:40 without interrupting him and saying, I'm sorry, that's...
Governor Walz somehow managed to act like a substitute teacher while ruling like a prison warden. What began as emergency powers morphed into a year-long illusion of control. One day, you're walking your dog. The next, you're fined for sitting on a park bench too close to someone. Minnesota became the only place where standing near a lake required 6 feet of distance, maybe even a permit to breathe fresh air. Enter Joe Rogan. Wielding his signature blend of rugged logic and biting humor, he roasted Walz like meat at a wilderness cookout, laughing at how the COVID rules felt made up on the spot. Wait, he quipped. You can buy vodka, but you can't hit the squat rack. COVID must really hate leg day. The state's policies felt like an escape room designed by people who'd never been outside, needlessly complex, strangely strict, and completely backwards. And just when Walz's team thought things couldn't get worse, Tucker Carlson arrived cold and razor-sharp. No yelling, no jokes. Just quiet demolition. He dismantled Walz's record like a man peeling wallpaper off a house that was already collapsing.
But I felt bad for her. I was like, this is affirmative action. This is what it looks like. It's same with Tim Walz. He has that job because he's a white guy. They're like, oh, we need a white guy. And he's an affirmative action hire also. And you saw how afraid he was. He's like, it's not meritocratic at all. That guy did not earn that job. They're like, oh, sort of sexually non-threatening beta male, white guy, over 60 from the Midwest. You. Okay.
And the criminals. They were asked to fill out surveys about how their arrests made them feel. Rogan was losing it. So someone steals a flat-screen TV and we worry about his self-esteem, he said. But take your kid to a park during lockdown and you're treated like a criminal. You could tell from his voice, he was fired up. Just a few seconds away from one of his classic rants. Tucker Carlson stayed calm but kept bringing the facts. He said that under Governor Walz, crime started to feel normal, and safety started to feel like a story from a fairy tale. People didn't feel protected anymore, they felt abandoned. Rogan jumped back in. Your kid doesn't know how to write his name, he said, but he can list 42 types of What are these schools even doing teaching? TikTok level, psychology. Parents expected their kids to learn math and reading, but, instead, got back confused kids who knew all the right buzzwords but none of the basics. They weren't students anymore, they were being turned into little activists who didn't even understand what they were fighting for.
When they decided that J.D. Vance was weird.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
And then they just, weirds everywhere.
Weird. Oh, you don't want a weird guy. Meanwhile, you have fucking Tim Walz is your VP. You don't think that guy's weird?
Super weird.
He's weird in every way.
Yeah.
The way he walks, the way he waves his hands.
Yeah, he reminds me of the clown emoji.
He's a bizarre guy.
He's a strange dude.
I just don't understand why they made that choice.
Yeah, it gives the creeps.
I just don't understand why they made that choice. There's a lot of other people that are qualified. I don't know why. I read that Kamala Harris made that decision when she was sleeping.
Rogan and Carlson weren't just talking, they were taking everything apart. With sarcasm and real frustration, they pointed out every weird rule, bad decision, and arrogant, quote, Governor Walz had said like it made sense. Lockdowns rising, crime, failing schools, high taxes. This wasn't a debate, it was a roast, powered by plain old common sense. And Walz, he didn't say a word. No tweets, no press statements. Just silence, like someone watching their career crash and burn online. People were watching. They were laughing, agreeing, and maybe finally starting to wonder why they went along with all of it in the first place. Rogan and Tucker weren't trying to win votes. They didn't want to run things. They just called out the nonsense with blunt honesty, the kind only outsiders can get away with.
At war. The weapons you used in war? No, you were in war. Like, oh, you were a head foot? No, you weren't a head coach, you were the water boy.
Yeah.
The fuck are you talking about?
I thought some of that was weird.
Well, he's just a liar. But that's what a lot of these people are. They're just actors who are ugly. And they're like, well, I can't really make it in show business. And I want a lot of attention. And I want to be a special person. So I'll do politics. I'm good at bullshitting.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, they're trusting. They're like, oh, he's saying the right things. If you say the right things, abracadabra. And then next thing you know.
And then it hit them. People were finally asking questions. Voters started rethinking their loyalty. And Walz, once hailed as the golden boy of progressive leadership, was left scrambling to defend his record like a man trying to sell a leaking canoe in the middle of a flood. Meanwhile, Rogan and Carlson, cool as ever. For them, it was just another Tuesday, another clueless politician dragged into the spotlight and thrown to the digital lions. Because when two media giants like Rogan and Carlson align, they don't just expose missteps, shine a blinding light on them for millions to see. With sharp wit, focused fury, and zero tolerance for political spin, they turn government failure into must-see truth bombs.